Now we go to the Being Wrong segment, and today is going to be the first time, at least I try, to incorporate video from the Being Wrong segment of People I Know show. So right now we're recording the podcast. It's going to be episode 16. Gene Leppala is here with me, and we've just recorded quite a bit for the last hour and a half or so. And before we get to the Being Wrong segment, Gene, if someone wants to tune in by clicking the link below to listen to this episode, what do you think is most valuable? I know you recently had a liver transplant, and we talked about that in detail and a lot of things from your life I just found as fascinating.
There's a lot of detail involved, and we covered a lot of things, but yeah, it's a big story.
It's super in-depth, but in a way that I thought all of it was just so interesting to learn about the process and some of the things you struggle with, that, you know, alcoholism and different things that force you to need a new liver, and how open you were about it. I really would hope that someone that's dealt with any of this or is interested just to hear a great story would take a listen to Gene's story. But also we talked about our mutual friend, Josh Torgeson, who passed away, I guess, less than 2 months ago, and just what a wonderful person is and some of the things that we learned from him. And what would you say is the biggest thing you learned from Josh?
Wow, just listening, being an incredible listener. I mean, that's the biggest thing I definitely learned. And how he took that listening into his life and made it a personal philosophy.
And I think through our conversation so far today, we'll learn to be even better listeners after really thinking about how good a listener he had to be kind of the person that he was in our life. And we just got done chatting about intellectual humility, right, which I'll post. The article is going to be found somewhere on the People I Know show page and on my Kurt Carstensen Facebook page, as well as the show notes for this episode. I really would encourage people to read about intellectual humility. It's something that I didn't know this term until recently. I thought I was kind of living my life considering this, but it's an in-depth piece that hopefully will help people understand this concept, which has been a part of my podcast in the Being Wrong segment, which is what we're recording now, but it's really more than that. So, Gene, if you could, as something I do on every episode of the podcast, is I ask my guests to think about something that they were wrong about, something that at this point in their life they can look back and say, yep, I was wrong about this or that, my thinking's changed, I'm doing something different. Gene, what were you wrong about?
Yeah, I came across just a very kind of sudden epiphany where I just changed my mindset about a lot of factors that were involved in this. And I was extremely guarded about what was happening to me. My wife didn't know how bad things were. My friends didn't know. I was incredibly good at not showing my sickness or illness. You know, most people didn't really outwardly see that I was sick. Some people noticed, but they didn't say anything necessarily. But for the most part, it was when I really just decided I needed to just, for myself, that was the thing. I needed to accept it. I needed to be committed that my new path was going to be completely open. I was going to be open to all my friends. Any question they might have, I would answer, maybe more bluntly than they even wanted to hear. You know, I'd go out with friends of mine when I was getting very sick, and we'd talk about a lot of things, about things we'd done and other things like that. And a lot of times I'd close our conversation after going to lunch or whatever we did with, you know, did we cover everything? You know, a simple statement. But they'd go, yeah, I think we covered everything, just thinking it was just a random thought. And then I'd look them dead in the eye and say, but, you know, because just so you're really aware of this might be the last time we speak. You know, a lot of people that, obviously, if you die in an accident like Josh did, you don't have that opportunity.
Yeah.
But I literally had the opportunity to look at people and say, I might never talk to you again. Are we good? Because I don't want you to be regretting anything that we didn't talk about or didn't do or something like that. I don't want to be that person. You know, are we okay? Have you said everything you want to say to me? You know? So, it was pretty, yeah. And I had to commit and committing to not drinking was a thing I just had to do, and I made it happen. It wasn't like it was unchallenging, but I committed to it.
That's powerful, Gene. And I think I've learned that in recent years to be more open and honest about just the things that I feel like I'm thinking about, struggling with, that I maybe would have not wanted to tell people before. But it sounds like as you went through this process of nearly dying and thankfully getting a liver transplant and hopefully living for a long time now, would you say that you're now going to be much more open and honest about everything moving forward than you ever were?
Oh, I would definitely say that. One of the things that, one of the main things that gave me the level of energy or power to make it through the days that I wasn't even really supposed to make it through. There were plenty of times when the lights should have gone out or were close to going out, a number of emergency room visits and things of the sort. And there were just plenty of those moments, and the things that brought me through them were the things that my friends opened up to me about and just expressed, maybe something you wouldn't express on a given day, telling somebody really what you mean to them, what they've done in your life, how your life is better or different because they were in it. And it was a powerful thing to me. It really kept me going. It really kept me wanting to be there the next day and days after that for them or for myself.
The urgency, the deadline of it all brought these things to light.
Literally,
that were there.
The deadline.
They were underlying. People would think these things, but finally, this urgency of you not maybe being there again brought this out of people.
Because again, have we covered everything? One of those things where it's like, I'm giving you the opportunity to not have to be like, if I only would have said this to them. What was the last thing I said to them? What was whatever? I wish I would have expressed this. I wish I would have said that. It's important to tell these people when they are around you. Don't just treat it like it's every other day. Treat it like it's the last day, literally. I mean, because you don't know. Something could happen like happened to Josh. I'd sent him just a random everyday text message like hours before his accident.
He texted me 15 minutes before the accident was reported. I don't know where he was at that time, if he was just leaving his previous appointment. I don't know. I'll never know. There's something he kind of wanted to talk to me soon. There's something he really wanted to talk about.
Right.
And I don't get to know that now, but I can hopefully learn from that and do better for myself and pass on some sort of helpful message to others.
Right. That's one of the things is I just realized after the fact that there was just so much left that we had to do. Not had to do, but so many things that I would have liked to do and tell him about, or that we could have done together, that occurrence isn't going to happen. And that makes you realize what I'd already realized from what I'd gone through myself with my own personal health issues, is that's important to kind of, figure these things out between these interpersonal situations that we have. They're extremely important things. There are very few things that are that important. There's almost nothing than our bonds with other people. That's one thing I would definitely say I gathered from this.
Well, we got it out of you, Gene. It was the being wrong segment, and I think that's as good of a message as I've heard from anybody in this, that being able to share these things that matter the most with the people that mean the most, and how urgent that might be is I think a lesson that all of us can learn. So
yeah, because that was a point where I was wrong, because I was so guarded about all of these ideas and what was wrong with me that I didn't want to tell anybody, and I didn't realize that I wasn't going to get through this by myself.
Well, for those listening, hello, who's that in the background?
Boy.
We're recording this in Gene's home, and the kids are coming and going.
Thanks for the dab, honey.
That's good. I think that brings us out of a very deep conversation.
Right.
And I guess I've had this podcast now for, I think, 4 months and people are listening, and it's great to have all the listeners, but I want as many other people that would possibly be interested in listening to listen. So I'm using this as my first chance of doing something a little bit different. Thank you, Gene, for being on the Being Wrong video segment.
Thank you for inviting me to all this. It's been extremely interesting to me.
And for someone, and I know you weren't a podcast listener, so this is a good example to expand on this briefly. You weren't a podcast listener, even with the episode with Josh, when trying to explain to you how to find it. I think you thought it was video initially, or maybe not, because I've been doing some other video things like this a while back, that people would see the videos and me promoting People I Know show, but might have not actually watched or actually gone to an episode and listen. To listen to an episode, you can click the link that I'm going to have somewhere along this video. You can listen from the website. That's okay. That's one way to do it. Click play. But if you need to stop at some point and go away, you'd have to remember what time that was to go back to it and put the little scroll bar over, and then you'll be able to find where it was and continue. There are better ways, though, for podcasts. Podcasts are hugely popular and successful for people that know how to use them. I use Apple Podcasts. It comes automatically on your iPhone if you have an iPhone. If you don't have an iPhone, with the Android system, you probably can do Google Podcasts or Spotify or Stitcher or TuneIn. Those are some of them. There's some more, like Podbean, I think, is another one. There's so many of them, and People I Know show is going to be on most of them. It's not on all of them. I tried to get it on iHeartRadio, but they didn't accept it yet for some reason. Maybe at some point they will. So you can't listen everywhere, but if you have any of these apps, it's going to be easier. You can subscribe to the podcast just by searching People I Know show or my name, Kurt Carstensen, and you'll be able to see every time a new podcast comes out. Every Friday, essentially, a new podcast will be waiting there for you. And obviously, I'm going to have different guests, and some might be more interesting to you than others. Perhaps you'll listen to all of them. Whatever you do is great, but this is kind of the thing you're going to get occasionally. Here I'm on with Gene today because we're good friends with Josh, who passed away, and I hadn't seen Gene, in a couple of years, even though we both had this close connection to Josh, and Gene just 4 months ago had the liver transplant, among way more. I could talk to him for hours, but as we had the conversation today, I realized there's things that we can learn from each other, Gene and I, from talking, but instead of just Gene and I getting together and talking, why not record it, put it out there, and maybe there's something from this, and there's probably many things from this that other people could learn from. So thank you, Gene.
Hey, thank you. This has really been super interesting to me. If you haven't seen his show, like you said, I was not really a podcast guy, and it's something I would think I would be really excited about. This is my cat. Yes, thank you, honey. But yeah, this is definitely a worthwhile listen. I've heard some great things that you've done, and I like the idea of what you're doing, and I love who you're choosing to talk to. And yeah, so I'd really recommend anybody checking it out. There's a whole bunch of episodes that are worth your time.
Thank you for the endorsement, Gene, and thank you for being on today's episode.
You're welcome.